Somaliland. It's a warm-up. We are looking
This first session on Somaliland democratization and recognition. And I'm just going to quickly say what the format's going to be. We're of course pushed for time. What we will do is there's a program. Everyone has already been introduced, so I will just identify the speakers again. We will not introduce them again and give you all the wonderful things about who they are and what they do. I will identify their presentation, and the speakers will speak in the order that they're listed in the program. Each speaker will be asked to speak for 10 minutes if possible. However, the minister will be speaking a bit longer, and Hussein Adams will speak a bit longer. After all the presentations are done, then we will take questions. So when each speaker is making a presentation, if you have a question about something that they say, you should jot your question down, and questions and answers and responses will all be done after all the presentations are made. But let me quickly just identify myself. My name is Marcia Thomas, and I was asked by Saeed to moderate this session. I work for a local organization here in Los Angeles called USA for Africa. And I am really, really pleased to be here, and it's a pleasure after years and years of hearing Saeed talk about Somaliland, to meet so many Somalilanders. Our first speaker will be Professor Hassan, who is at Holy Cross University in Massachusetts. He is speaking on democratization and recognition of Somaliland. Our second speaker will be the wonderful Minister of Foreign Affairs, Amina Adan. Our third speaker will be Ahmed Saleo. Ahmed Saleo. I'm sorry. Our fourth speaker will be Ambassador David Shin. And then the next speaker will be Professor Jazbai from South Africa, whose presentation is slightly different than what was written here. He's going to talk a little bit about Africa's best secret, no more, the African Union and South Africa. And then the last speaker will be Jim, and Jim, I know I'm going to need some help with your last name. Kara Jennis, who's already been introduced as a member of parliament. So, Dr. Adams, you have the microphone.
Yeah, first of all, I want to join all those who spoke before me in congratulating the organizers of this convention and the SOPRI Institute. And I hope that as a result of the convention, the SOPRI Institute will be further institutionalized, and it would receive both international and domestic assistance so that it can continue good work like this. And I hope that the convention would not be the last one, and maybe even we can have one in Hargeisa itself, other than After the thanks, my talk is going to be based on one thesis. And the thesis is that Somaliland deserves recognition precisely because of its democratic institutions, however embryonic they are. And relative, if you look at it, there are two ways. First, let me be very clear so I'm not misunderstood in the beginning. From Somaliland standards, the democracy in Somaliland is not yet fully strong. It is still fragile. It is still a long way to go. And I'm not qualified to talk about that, but our honorable guest from Somaliland will give you that sense of critique, which is what allows progress and change. The second standard is the Horn of Africa standard. From the Horn of Africa standard, Somaliland is a matured democratic entity. Now I'm going to take the theory of democratization or democracy and apply its key dimensions or elements to the Somaliland experience, and then make the conclusion. The first dimension of democracy or democratization is the holding of fair and regular elections. If you look at Somaliland, it has held caucus-type election, indirect election. From the beginning it was born. It has held one constitutional referendum, and it has finally held one direct presidential election. And it is now set up in September, as you heard from our distinguished Swedish friends. They are going to hold a parliamentary elections. Now, the holding of elections is very, very challenging for democracy. Many democracies with the best constitution, they collapse when it comes to holding elections. So this practice, however, again, step by step, the big challenge comes in September, shows that Somaliland is a matured relative to the own political entity. The next dimension is the rotation of leaders. A democracy is a society where leaders are rotated. Now, if you look at Somaliland, and this is here, we have to go backward to see what facilitated democracy in Somaliland, and that was the Somali National Movement experience. The SNM changed its leaders at every convention, except one when our good friend Ahmed Silanya was elected twice, I believe. Nobody else was. There's almost a culture in the North that you cannot hold your seat all the time. Now you can contrast that to, for example, Abdullah Yusuf and the SSDF. He has been head of it from the time he founded it in Ethiopia to the present. He has been head of it longer than Saeed has ruled Somalia. And the same thing applies to the other movements. The leaders are not elected. Some of them, it's a dynasty, like the ID group, from father to son, following the Kim Il-sung model. So the other thing that makes the SNM different is that the SNM has been the most unique armed liberation movement. If you look at FLN in Algeria, Frelimo in Mozambique, ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe, and so on, you find that the armed movement, when they come to power, they almost do three things. One, they monopolize political power. Two, they destroy the opposition. Three, they nationalize the economy. SNM has done the opposite. In fact, it gave power to the society. And this giving of power to the society meant that for the last three presidents of Somaliland, only one came from the SNM, the other two came from outside the SNM completely. And that meant a culture of tolerance and compromise was injected into the society. Okay. Because the present president, as you know, had a job that we would consider a very, very bad job in the past. But that was forgotten. And that was forgotten because of that culture of tolerance that goes on. I must say that in the presidential elections, the vote was so close between the current president and Ahmed Silanyo that in other countries that could have led to a civil war. In Somaliland, it didn't do that because of the culture of tolerance, acceptance, and patience that the people have. Another aspect of democratization in Somaliland is the innovation in governance, the introduction of the Council of Elders, unique in Africa, and it has played a key role, especially in peace, keeping the society under peace. And even more recently, which for me was a surprise, because I thought Somaliland should continue in a caucus style for longer. I argued with Faisal when he was here a couple of years ago about that, and he said, no, they need parties. It is the transition to political parties, and the fact that there are at least viable 3 political parties as they are represented here. That is also a unique experience. It's not easy to create viable political parties. There is also, as you know well, a vibrant private sector represented here by Dalo, and they're going to be honored, I believe, for that. But that's only a representation. The private sector is always necessary, though we don't know to what extent. But to some extent, you need a private sector to have a liberal democracy. Without it, you cannot have a liberal democracy. There is a mushrooming of civil society with tangible achievements in the health and education sectors, as exemplified by the Edna Adan Hospital and by the 3 universities at Buro, Hargeisa, and Hamud. There is in the private sector and there is in the mushrooming civil society has also seen a very enhanced role for women. Women have come to play a much bigger role than they did before, and they're doing in many other areas of Africa. There is a relatively energetic free press, leading element being Al Jamhuriya, who are also being honored, I believe, in this convention. Another key aspect, and the most important because of our experience of suffering under Saeed, is the demilitarization and taking a democratic, constitutional, civilian leadership to control the armed forces. So the armed forces were first purged from all the militia disbanded, and the new armed forces is there, which is controlled by civilians. That is a mark of a fairly mature democratic society. These dimensions, therefore, and I'm going towards my conclusion, which will surprise my friend Marcia and others that I'm concluding early. I'm getting old enough, I speak less. These dimensions of democratization in Somaliland, this relatively democratic entity or polity needs to be protected, preserved and nurtured not only for its own sake, but also for the sake of Somalia's future and that of the rest of the Horn of Africa. I'm arguing that Somaliland is critical if Somalia in the south itself is going to be a democracy. It needs Somaliland. It needs So we should not feel apologetic because we are Somaliland. We should feel proud that we are eventually going to help our brothers, not only in Somalia, but even in Ethiopia and in other countries of the Horn. This is probably the most important reason why Somaliland should be recognized. And in conclusion, any strategy aimed at promoting and sustaining democracy in the Horn of Africa must place a priority on Somaliland's survival. Thank you very much.
Being short. No, I think I can manage this time. Because usually they have a podium that's so tall. Madam Moderator, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great honor for me to be here today. I'm honored to present to you before I break the house down. Give you a description of my country, Somaliland. For those of you who are not familiar with Somaliland, I see we have a lot of foreign guests. And also to be able to give you something about the achievements of Somaliland and the foreign policy and the main directions in where we wish to go in our foreign policy. My task here today, therefore, would be to give you an insight into the achievements of Somaliland, the peace and stability that we have, and which we often maintain under very different circumstances, and to give you the main directions of our foreign policy. But before I do that, I should mention that Somaliland has never been a colony. It has always been a free and sovereign country that only had a treaty of protection